The world was burning from east to west. In 1942, the war had reached a fever pitch, cities reduced to ash, oceans turned to graveyards. Across North Africa, Soviet plains, and the Pacific Islands, humanity fought against its own extinction. Private Daniel Cross, a young American soldier, wrote in his journal aboard a transport ship bound for Europe, "We've been told the war turning in our favor, but from what I've seen, the world's already lost." As the engines roared over the Atlantic, he watched the endless waves and wondered how many souls lay beneath them. Ships sunk by U-boats, men lost to a cause they barely understood. In Stalingrad, the Soviets bled the Axis dry. The city was nothing but ruins and snow, where soldiers froze in their trenches, fighting for inches of ground. In North Africa, desert winds carried the echoes of tanks clashing under a burning sky. In the Pacific, smoke rose over coral beaches, where young men fell before they even saw the enemy's face. The world was cracking, and everyone knew it. Daniel's ship approached the British coast, where he would join the Allied forces preparing for something massive, something that could end it all or break them for good. He closed his journal and whispered, "If this is victory, what does defeat look like?" By 1943, the world had learned to live with death. Daniel's unit had landed in Italy, where the war climbed mountains. The hills of Monte Cassino burned beneath artillery fire that turned ancient monasteries into rubble. Every night, the horizon glowed red. "War, not about ground anymore," the captain told them. "It's about how long men can stay human." Daniel walked among the wounded after each battle, faces pale, eyes hollow, prayers whispered into the dirt. In the distance, villagers emerged from cellars with nothing left but faith. At the same time, far to the east, the Soviets had begun to push back, reclaiming their cities inch by inch. The Germans were retreating, but not quietly. The forests of Ukraine became graveyards for both sides. Back home, the world tried to smile. Posters promised victory, music played, but every letter sent from the front carried the weight of another life lost. In a trench outside Cassino, Daniel held a blood-stained letter addressed to a name he didn't know. He never opened it. He simply placed it inside his pack, a small act of mercy for someone who would never return. June 6, 1944, the beaches of Normandy. The world held its breath as thousands of soldiers hit the sand under the screaming sky. Daniel's landing craft slammed into the waves. "Go, go!" yelled the sergeant as bullets tore through the air. The ocean turned red. The sand exploded around them. Daniel dove forward, feeling the shock of each explosion in his bones. The beach was chaos, bodies, smoke, fire, metal, but they pushed on. One step, another. The cliffs ahead felt like the edge of the world. By noon, the beachhead was taken. By night, the silence returned, heavy and unreal. Daniel sat beside a fallen comrade and whispered, "We made it." But in truth, he didn't know what they had made it to. Across the channel, radios crackled with hope. The liberation of Europe has begun. But in the minds of those who lived it, liberation didn't feel like victory. It felt like surviving the impossible. The dead lay on the shore, eyes open to the sky, as waves washed over them, carrying away the last of their names. By spring of 1945, the sound of war had changed. It was deeper now, slower, like the final breath of a dying beast. Berlin was collapsing. Soviet troops stormed through the shattered streets, tanks grinding over rubble, snipers hidden in crumbling apartments. Civilians huddled in basements, praying for it all to end. Daniel's unit entered Germany from the west. The once proud cities were reduced to smoke and bone. The air smelled of burnt iron and surrender. He met a group of children wandering a road lined with broken vehicles. None spoke. One of them held a white flag made from a torn bedsheet. Daniel knelt, handing them his last chocolate ration. The smallest boy whispered, "Is it over?" Daniel didn't answer. He didn't know. That night they heard the news. Hitler was dead. The war was ending, not with a roar, but with a sigh that carried 6 years of pain. When the war finally ended, the silence was unbearable. Daniel sat alone beside the Rhine, his uniform torn, his journal filled with names that no longer existed. Across the world, cities cheered, bells rang, flags rose again. But for the soldiers who had seen the end, there was only emptiness, a stillness too heavy to celebrate. Daniel opened the blood-stained letter he had carried since 1943. It was written by a German soldier. "To my wife and son, if you read this, the war is over for me. I only hope you live to see peace." He folded it gently and placed it back in his pack. The war had taken everything, but somewhere in its ashes, he had found understanding. Looking out over the calm river, he whispered, "Maybe that's what victory means, learning how to live again." The wind carried his words away, joining the countless voices lost to history. The footage, the letters, the ruins, they were all that remained of a generation that had seen the end of the world and walked away from it. The war was over, but its echoes would never fade.